My name is Elena Weiss, and for 3 years, I kept the company running quietly from the background. I wasn't loud. I wasn't flashy. I managed systems, permissions, workflows, things no one noticed unless they stopped working. My manager used to say, Elena is reliable. Not leadership material, but useful. I smiled every time. Then one Monday morning, HR sent a calendar invite titled Role Transition Update. 5 minutes. No warning. They told me my position was being streamlined. Replaced by an intern. 20 years old. Business student.
Cheap.
You'll help with the handover, my boss said, not even looking at me. It's mostly automated anyway. Mostly. I packed my desk slowly while the intern sat in my chair, nodding confidently. No one asked what I actually did. No one asked what I controlled. As I walked out, my badge still worked. That was the first sign they had made a very expensive mistake. I didn't go home after leaving the office. Instead, I sat in my car across the street, watching people I trained walk past the glass doors without noticing me. My phone buzzed. An automated alert. Admin access used. Intern A01. I almost laughed. They had given him my title, but not my understanding. The system I built wasn't a single dashboard. It was layers, permissions stacked on permissions, approvals chained together like dominoes. On paper, everything looked simple. In reality, nothing moved without my silent confirmations. At 11:17 a.m., the intern tried to approve a vendor payment. Error. Authorization pending. At 11:22, customer onboarding froze. At 11:30, the internal chat system slowed to a crawl. Not broken. Just waiting. I opened my laptop for the first time that day. Logged in remotely. My access hadn't been revoked yet. HR always took time. Too much time. Across the street, I saw people start to panic. And I was just getting started. And for 7 years, I was invisible by design. I didn't chase credit. I didn't play office politics. I documented everything, automated what others ignored, and built safeguards no one bothered to understand. Management called it background work. They were right. Background work runs everything. At noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Company line. I let it ring. Inside the building, the intern was sweating through his borrowed blazer. He kept refreshing the screen, waiting for approvals that never came. His manager stood behind him, arms crossed, whispering sharply, "Why won't it move?" Because I designed it not to. Every critical process required a human override. My override triggered only when risk thresholds were crossed. Today, every threshold was crossed on purpose. I finally answered the call on the third attempt. "Hi," I said calmly. "This is Elena. Is something not working?" The silence on the other end was delicious. They didn't beg yet. First, they pretended it was a small glitch. I could hear it in their voices. Forced calm, rehearsed confidence. Someone said my name like it was a technical term, not a person. "Elena, we just need a quick confirmation. Probably a permissions overlap." I smiled to myself. Permissions don't overlap when they're designed to collapse. By 12:17, the payments dashboard froze. By 12:21, compliance alerts began stacking, red, orange, red again. The intern's hands shook as he clicked through windows he didn't understand. Every shortcut led to another locked door. I opened my laptop at home, not to fix anything, just to watch. Years ago, I'd built a silent dependency map. Nothing illegal. Nothing dramatic. Just logic. If one verified authority disappeared, the system slowed. If risk increased, it stopped entirely. That wasn't sabotage. That was responsibility. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my boss. And his voice was no longer confident. By early afternoon, the panic reached the glass offices. Meetings were canceled mid-sentence. Legal was pulled into an emergency call. Someone finally admitted the truth out loud. The system hadn't failed. It had protected itself. That's when they realized what they'd lost. The intern sat silently while 3 senior managers argued over terminology he didn't understand. Override, temporary access, manual approval. Words that only work when the right person is still inside the building. I watched the internal dashboard refresh itself every 60 seconds. Each refresh tightened restrictions. Each alert required a signature that no longer existed.
Mine.
At 1:04 p.m., shipments stopped. At 1:07, partner portals locked. At 1:10, an automated email went out to regulators, standard language, unemotional, devastating. Compliance verification pending. My phone rang again. I let it ring. Because this time they didn't need HR. They needed me. And they were finally saying my name correctly. At 1:18 p.m., I stepped into a quiet bookstore across the street from their headquarters.
No cameras. No bite scans.
Just silence and paper. I opened my laptop, not in a rush, not angry. Calm is dangerous when you know exactly where the leverage lives. The system greeted me like nothing had changed. Same permissions. Same authority. Same trust. Because replacing a person is easy. Replacing access is not. Inside the logs, I saw it clearly. The intern had been granted surface-level credentials. Training mode. Read-only dashboards. Enough to look busy, not enough to fix anything. They had taken my chair. But I still held the keys. An internal message flashed on my screen, flagged urgent, marked executive only. We need temporary cooperation to restore operations. Temporary. I smiled. Companies always realize too late that power doesn't sit in job titles. It sits in systems designed by people they underestimated. I closed the message without replying. Let them wait. By 2:03 p.m., the first crack appeared. Their internal chat lit up, alerts stacked like dominoes. Payroll sync failed. Vendor access timed out. A regional dashboard went dark, then another. Small failures, yes, but tightly connected ones. I watched it unfold from a distance, like a chessboard I'd memorized years ago. The intern tried to help. I know this because I saw the attempt logs, wrong permissions, blocked actions, error after error. They weren't stupid. They were simply never meant to hold this weight. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then an email arrived. Subject line. Urgent. Clarification needed.
No apology. No humility.
Just urgency. Funny how respect shows up only when systems stop breathing. I typed one sentence into a blank document, then paused. Power isn't in pulling the trigger fast. It's in letting them understand you're the only one who can. I hit save, not send. At 2:11 p.m., arrogance officially expired. The CEO joined the thread. Then legal. Then someone from compliance, who had never spoken in meetings before. Messages overlapped. Questions repeated. No one was reading, only reacting. I finally answered the call. Hi, I said calmly. You sound busy. Silence. Then my former boss cleared his throat. We need temporary access restored. Just until. Until what? I asked. Until the intern figures out a system I designed over 5 years? More silence. This one heavier. He tried again. Softer now. Let's not make this personal. I smiled, even though no one could see it. You made it personal when you replaced experience with cheap obedience, I said. I just made it technical. In the background, I heard typing. Someone whispered, another region just dropped. I checked the dashboard. Red was spreading. Fear doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives organized. They said my name like it was a liability. Not out loud at first. Inside messages. In forwarded emails. I could see it in the metadata who mentioned me, how often and how urgently. My name climbed faster than any KPI I'd ever delivered. Finally, the CEO spoke. Amelia, let's talk rationally. Interesting choice of word. I am being rational, I replied. The system requires an owner.
You removed me.
The system responded. Legal jumped in, voice tight. You're exposing the company to risk.
No, y correcta.
The company exposed itself when it handed core infrastructure to an intern with read-only access. A pause. Then a softer tone. What would it take to fix this? I looked at the clock. 3 regions offline. Payroll queued. Vendors locked out. First, I said, you acknowledge I wasn't just HR. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, quietly. What else? I leaned back. Now they were listening. I smiled, almost imperceptibly, as the weight of the moment settled. Amelia Rhodes wasn't just a name on a badge anymore. She was the pulse of the system. With a few keystrokes, I had throttled access for the intern who thought she could replace me. Every automated process now flagged errors in bright red. Alerts pinged executives' phones in London, Berlin, and Paris. The intern panicked, scrolling through notifications she couldn't fix. I didn't shout. I didn't gloat. I just typed. Access restored. I murmured, conditionally. Only once they recognized what they had lost, what they had underestimated. The CEO's office called me immediately. The tone was different. Urgent, cautious, almost pleading. Amelia, they began. We need you to guide us. The system, it's unstable without you. I leaned back, letting the pause stretch. Finally, I said, Guide?
No.
You'll follow my instructions precisely. Or the outages continue. They understood. And that's when the shift truly happened. They scheduled an emergency board call within the hour. Not tomorrow. Not after legal reviewed it.
Now.
I joined from my kitchen table, hair still damp, laptop balanced on a stack of books. On the screen, 12 faces stared back at me. People who had never learned my name until the system stopped breathing. The CFO cleared his throat. We didn't realize how interconnected your role was. I almost laughed. Almost. You didn't realize, I said calmly, because you never asked. You replaced experience with cheap confidence and called it efficiency. Silence followed. The intern wasn't on the call.
She couldn't be.
Half the dashboards were still locked behind permissions only I could grant. The CEO leaned forward. What will it take to stabilize operations? I had rehearsed this moment in my head for years. Not out of revenge, but self-respect. My position back. Full authority. A revised contract. And public acknowledgement that the failure wasn't technical, it was managerial.
No threats.
No drama. Just terms. And this time, they listened. The board paused, calculating, weighing pride against survival. I could see it in their eyes, the recognition that without me, the whole system teetered on collapse. Their shortcuts, their assumptions, their efficiency initiatives, all meaningless without the person who actually understood the intricate web of dependencies. I pulled up the dashboard remotely, just a few clicks, and highlighted the areas that had already begun failing. Graphs turned red. Alerts popped up. Every neglected module screamed neglect. See, I said softly. Every process here depends on more than code. It depends on stewardship, oversight, accountability, all of which I've provided for years. A silent intern would never have caught this. Never. They had wanted a placeholder, someone inexpensive, someone replaceable. Now they had evidence. The room stayed quiet. I let the silence hang. Authority doesn't need shouting. It needs results. And the results were already speaking for me. I leaned back, watching them scramble. Emails were sent. Slack messages pinged. Someone tried to reboot the system. Another tried to patch a module I had warned them about months ago. All in vain. My hands weren't on the keyboard, but the framework I'd built years ago was holding them hostage. Not maliciously, just effectively. I sipped my coffee, calm, collected. Amelia Rhodes, the intern replacement, wasn't even aware she was a pawn. She smiled politely at a meeting, nodded at suggestions, oblivious that every step she took was trapped in my architecture. Every report she submitted, every form she filled, every alert she ignored, it was under my control. I could revoke, reroute, or recalibrate with a click. They had underestimated me. Assumed my absence meant vulnerability. Assumed my replacement could function alone. But control isn't about presence, it's about precision. And I had both. By late afternoon, panic was spreading through the office like wildfire. Managers huddled in corners, whispering urgent updates. HR was calling for meetings that never happened because every system depended on credentials I still owned. I checked the logs silently. Every attempted fix, every password reset, every failed access was documented in perfect detail. My replacement, Amelia Rhodes, smiled politely in her meetings, unaware she was performing tasks that were subtly sabotaged by the very framework she relied on. I remembered Matt's smug face when he replaced me, the way he bragged about cutting costs, bringing in fresh talent. Now, irony was delicious. They couldn't fire me, couldn't patch me out, couldn't bypass the architecture I had built meticulously over the years. Every automated alert, every dependency, every critical file, my fingerprints were there. And soon, the consequences would hit them all at once. That evening, the call came back, different tone this time. Respectful, careful. The CEO spoke first. "We're reinstating your role. Immediate effect. Full authority restored. The intern role will be reclassified under your supervision." I nodded, not smiling. Victory didn't need celebration. It needed closure. By morning, I was back inside the system, officially. I stabilized operations within 30 minutes. Errors vanished. Alerts turned green. The company breathed again. An internal email followed.
Public. Clear.
The recent disruption was caused by leadership oversight, not technical failure. We acknowledge the critical contribution of the system's architect we failed to value. People stopped mocking. They started listening. As for the intern, she stayed. I trained her properly. Not out of spite, but principle. They replaced me once. They never tried again. Because they finally understood. You don't replace the person who owns the system.